This episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Whether it's espresso machines, manual brewing devices, or general coffee shop needs, they seek to pursue the most innovative coffee products, both domestic and abroad, to offer their customers. Find out more at prima-coffee.com. This is Keys to the Shop, Founder Friday edition. Today we're talking with Katie Startzman, founder and owner of Native Bagel Company in Berea, Kentucky. Hello everybody and welcome to Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. So if you serve coffee for a living, it's a big part of what you do, then this podcast is designed to help you along in your career. And today is a Founder Friday edition, where we, of course, if you've been with the show for any length of time, you know at the last Friday of every month, we like to feature a founder and entrepreneur of a company that is doing great things in their community and is an inspiration. So today we're talking with Katie Startzman, who is the founder of Native Bagel Company. And this is the first time that we've actually done a show where the main thrust of the company is not coffee up front, but is a food item like bagels. But, you know, I have a feeling that a lot of us out there in the community are actually in the same boat. You might have a sandwich shop that does coffee. You might have a bagel shop that does coffee. And Katie is one such person. Her and her husband, Michael, run this company over in Berea, Kentucky, which is a really quaint town. My family and I had the pleasure of visiting, and it is super artsy, full of crafts and mountains, and just really amazing place. And Native Bagel Company was a great experience as well. So a little bit about Katie. So Katie was raised in the Northeast, but she has called Berea, Kentucky home for more than 20 years. And in fact, before founding the Native Bagel Company, she worked in the nonprofit world. She organized a large community garden and wrote a book. She is a published author of a book called The Knitted Slipper Book. So if you're into knitting and you want to look that up, absolutely go check that out. And she decided to explore the food business because nothing makes her happier, she says, than handing people something delicious to eat. So we get to talk to Katie about the founding of the company. Of course, we're going to dive into some of the details, some of the challenges that she had going from the idea to starting at a cart at the farmer's market in Berea. And now she's got her brand new brick and mortar store where we conduct our interview. And I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Katie has a lot of great energy and is really engaging, and I really enjoyed talking with her. So let me bring you now to my interview with Katie Startzman of the Native Bagel Company. Okay, everybody, I'm here at Native Bagel Company with owner Katie Startzman here in Berea, Kentucky. Welcome, Katie, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I literally just rolled into town here. We're in your store. And this is a really beautiful space. And you've been open for how long now?
Just about 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So
brand new.
And you started as a cart originally, right?
Yeah. So I really wanted to start a food business, but I wasn't ready to take the plunge into a full brick and mortar location. And I have been a shopper at the Berea Farmers Market for a long time and saw an opportunity to sell prepared food there. So I built a commercial kitchen in my garage and started selling bagels and coffee and sandwiches from the cart.
Is this something that you always wanted to do? Like, take us back to the beginning. Like, how did
Sure.
you decide that you wanted to be involved in the food business, and why bagels?
Sure. So I actually don't have a ton of experience in the food business. I went to Berea College about 20 years ago. I'm from the Northeast. But my husband grew up in Berea, and so we decided to stay here after we were married. And we've lived here ever since. I worked at a nonprofit in town for a while, and then I wanted to stay home with my boys when they were babies, and so I left that job And my twin sister and I actually had a craft blog for several years, and I sold knitting patterns. I was a knitwear designer.
Neat.
And I wrote a knitting book that was published in 2013. So going into food and coffee and bagels was a real left turn for us. But having lived in Berea for 20 years, I really saw an opportunity. There weren't as many restaurants or local food options at all. And it's something that I know it sounds cliched, but it's something that I've always been interested in my personal life. And so I just wanted to explore it more as a business. So I participated in a 10-week-long entrepreneurship class that was sponsored by the City of Berea Economic Development Department and MACID, which is a local nonprofit in town that actually works in the Appalachian region. They have several different things that they focus on, but economic development is one of those things. So through that 10-week class, I used that class kind of as a framework to think about what kind of business I wanted to start. And actually, at the beginning of that class, I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but then kind of did some feasibility studies and thought more about my strengths, what I was interested in, and came away with bagels.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that just sounds like a lot more. Of course, maybe I need to talk to more entrepreneurs, but it sounds very wise.
Well, the whole first third of that class really was about identifying what your personal values and goals are and how you want to live your life, and then matching the business that you come up with to kind of align with those values. And one of the reasons I did bagels is because it's a breakfast food. Like having a food truck or doing like a mobile pizza oven felt very sexy and fun at first, but then thinking about the practicalities of my life and having 2 small children and not wanting to be out till 1 o'clock in the morning selling pizza, it made me really rethink. So that's one of the reasons why I ended up doing a breakfast food. Plus, I'm really committed to sourcing as carefully as I can, and having a blank canvas and a bagel, you can put lots of different ingredients on top of that as they become available seasonally.
Nice. And so being from the Northeast too, bagels kind of fits.
Yes.
You have some experience eating bagels.
Yes, definitely.
Good bagels too.
Yes, definitely. Now, so I still am waiting for an awesome pizza place to pop up, but I miss that still. But yes, having good bagels, I mean, that's something that I miss, and it's a fun challenge. I'm very kind of process and technique driven in any kind of thing that I work on, and so trying to just research that obsessively and keep making test batches over and over was very satisfying. And that's how I got started, just making them. And then I actually we would set up down in Old Town Berea, and I would just give them away to friends and strangers. I would post about it on Facebook just as a part of my research and development to kind of share that excitement and to kind of see what people thought about my first few batches.
How was it received?
It was great. It was really fun. It felt like I was playing store. It felt like, when you're a kid. And so it was but there was no money, just giving things away. And I know it has to be a business, but nothing makes me happier than giving food to someone else, so it was very satisfying.
Well, I think that statement alone is kind of proof that you should be in this business.
Yeah.
That's very
It's
sweet.
rewarding.
Yeah. And so you started with you mentioned earlier, commercial kitchen. You built that out, and you started at the farmer's market. And
yes.
you actually now are charging money for those things that
that's right.
people were getting for free.
Yes, that's right. And we've done 2 crowdfunding campaigns as we started and grown this business. So to build the cart and the kitchen, we did a Kickstarter campaign that was fully funded in like 48 hours. I think the first one was, and then the second one was also just a couple days. And so that was really gratifying to kind of build that community, and people were really excited about it. So that's something that was really neat. So that we used that money to build out the kitchen and build the cart. And then becoming a part of the community at the farmers market was really energizing and exciting.
And the farmers market is not too far from the brick and mortar where we're sitting right now.
No, exactly. And I actually really took a long time to find our space for our location because I still wanted to stay tied to that community of farmers and vendors. And so we're within a stone's throw of the market's location. And Berea, I'm really proud of the Berea Farmers Market. I'm also on the board of the Farmers Market, but we're one of the few year-round markets, even in Kentucky.
Really?
And for a small town the size of Berea, it's really something to be proud of that we have a year-round market.
farmers markets are as an aside, I think farmers markets are a great place for people to start.
Yes, I agree.
And it sounds like it worked out well for you. And the town it's big enough to make have momentum,
right?
But then small enough for everyone to get to know you.
Yes, and it's a low cost of entry. It was not like, building out a kitchen somewhere. So yeah.
So it was always in the cards to open a brick and mortar. And so when you started at the farmers market, was there a definitive plan that you had, like, okay, we're going to be here for a year or whatever, and then get that space?
No. And honestly, I really started this business kind of just like as a project or a way to keep myself busy or just as a new challenge. And so I didn't even really honestly have a ton of financial goals when I first started. But after the first 6 weeks of selling at the farmers market, realizing, wow, this is popular. People love this. I thought then my goals kind of shifted and I thought we might be able to replace my husband's salary. So we live in Berea, but my husband, Michael, has been commuting to Frankfurt, which is just about an hour away for over 10 years. And that was really starting to wear on our family. And so it became my goal soon after we started the market to have a brick and mortar and replace his salary. And so that's kind of when things changed as far as what my goals were.
And you found this space how long into being in the market?
I casually looked for a space for about 6 months. I think it's just like any kind of real estate. It's good to not look when you're in a hurry. And so I think I looked at almost every vacant building in Berea. It's fun. I love to look at old buildings and make big plans. But there's not really as much... once you start looking behind the facades, some spaces were really rough. And so I looked at a lot of spaces that were not suitable.
Gotta take your time. I like that. It works for grocery shopping too. Don't shop when you're hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
So now that you've opened the store, I really enjoyed seeing on your Instagram account the progress of the brick and mortar coming together, the hanging of the wall plants and your retail and everything else. So that was really well documented.
Yeah, thank you.
And now it's been 8 weeks. What is different? I think we could all kind of guess what's different, but from your experience, what has really been the difference between your farmers market presence and this store?
Sure. Well, I think one of the things that's really special and one of the reasons why I always wanted to have a brick and mortar is kind of the space that you're creating and the space that you're holding when you have a physical location. I mean, we all know this. It's not just about the food. It's like how you feel when you walk in the door or how you feel after you leave. And so being able to control more of those variables for my customers and friends just feels really good. I worked really hard to think about what I wanted the space to feel like and how I wanted customers to feel when they were spending time here. And so to be able to put those things into practice was good. It's really nice too. I mean, I loved having the cart, but it also was kind of like camping and also feeding people. Like our cart was very bare bones. It wasn't like a food truck, and we were serving hundreds of bagels. And so it's very nice to like always know that my spatula is going to be on the shelf, in the back of my little prep area in the kitchen here. Yeah. So there's some little practical things like that, but then also just being able to, sell bagels all the time. We're open 5 days a week right now. We're going to be opening 6 days a week when this Berea College goes back into session in August. So
you're a lot more comfortable in this space. It rains and you're not going to have to cover anything up. We just had this weird mountain rain pass through right before this interview, and it doesn't shut your cart down.
Right.
What are the challenges that you've been experiencing in the first 8 weeks of business that you're thinking, okay, these are things I'm actively dealing with now, or I know that as the owner of a brick and mortar, I'm going to have to deal with these soon? Sure.
Well, if you saw this space on Saturday morning, you might say, wow, that space is too small. So this space, including all of our prep area and our restroom and office and everything, it's 540 square feet. We have 12 seats, and that's the maximum we are allowed to have because of our restroom. It's not handicap accessible. So that feels limiting right now. I was a little bit worried about that when we started, but this space is really excellently located and it was affordable. So I went for it. I'm also scared to have a lease for a full-on restaurant. It's just so much more of a commitment. So this feels in some way like a half step again. And when we first opened, I was a little bit worried about how that was going to work, but I still feel good about being here because we can try it for a year and see how it goes. And then if we need to go somewhere bigger, we can. So that's a challenge, honestly. It's always nice to have a line out the door because then people say, oh, there's something happening, and just our service area is also small. I've worked really hard. Actually, I've listened some to your podcast about creating a space that is efficient, slow, and thinking about that. On Saturdays, we have 5 people working in a really small area. Yeah. And so we're still learning how to do that, honestly, and just kind of having systems for all of the people that we have working and things like that. So I'm thinking about that and like the physical space. Another challenge for us is having an offsite kitchen. It has been great because, again, it's very affordable. It's really convenient because it's in my garage, but it's offsite. So if we have a very slow day, I'm just sitting here, polishing spoons when I could be back at the kitchen making bagels. So that's a little challenge in juggling our staff. We've got 2 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff, in addition to my husband and I. And so just trying to negotiate all of those things, those trade-offs has been a challenge.
I love the comment about the efficiency of space.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're dealing with the goal of controlling the experience for your customers, in some ways, smaller is better because the culture of your store is inescapable. You can't go to a far corner.
Yeah, I agree.
Feel like an outcast. You have to be involved.
Yes, that's true. I agree. Yeah. And we joke on Saturday about it being a bagel and a show because you're getting a bagel and you're seeing our dance behind the counter.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure people really appreciate that because people come to a place for an experience too.
Sure. Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's true. And yeah, and one of the things I'm most proud of is, we've been starting to get reviews on Yelp and TripAdvisor and Facebook and things like that. And one of the things people comment on frequently is how friendly we are and how they feel welcome when they're here. And that really is like my biggest goal. And I think that's what I take away with me when I visit a place, and that I'm really proud of that. So
I imagine you're also going to one day want to have that kitchen attached somewhere.
Yes.
So, but I think it seems, again, pretty wise to take a short step or a half step in the direction of your goal. What would you say your goal is for this right now? Now that you've got all this experience and you just wanted to do it,
Sure.
But now that you're involved in it, have your goals changed?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting to think about now, like now that I have some really competent staff and I've been delegating and handing off some of the actual production of bagels and things like that. It feels good to have the time and space to kind of think about some of those bigger picture items, like where do we want this business to go, or how can we grow our brand, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's been neat to think about. I haven't totally nailed down what we want to do, but we're thinking about possibly doing a couple retail items or possibly wholesaling to other coffee shops or cafes in the region. I actually am currently, my brother-in-law is building for us a little walk-in cooler at our prep kitchen because the bagels are mixed and then the dough is shaped and then they're refrigerated overnight. And that long, slow rise is one of the things that contributes to the flavor. And so having a walk-in cooler will really allow us to increase our production.
Nice.
So I'm starting to think about those things. And really, like, honestly, I still feel like it's when you have a newborn baby, I'm still like in that sleep deprived mode. I'm thrilled if we work less than 16 hours a day. So, I don't need to get carried away yet and start making plans for my drive-through or anything, but eventually.
That's a very important point you hit on there. I think Michael Gerber of the E-Myth Revisited book. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. Work on your business and not in your business.
Yes.
It's so hard for people to do that at first unless they hear that and they're like, that makes sense.
Right.
I'm actually leading this. I need headspace.
Right. Exactly. It's really hard. Yeah, and it's so, I mean, the thing about making the bagels is it's so concrete. It's so like, okay, I made 4 dozen bagels. This feels so good. But if I'm doing that, I can't be doing some of those other things. Mm-hmm. So, we're heading in that direction, but it's hard to let go of everything. So.
Right now, I want to take a break and talk to you about our sponsor, Prima Coffee. Prima is a specialty coffee equipment supplier, and they're based out of Louisville, Kentucky, right here in the same town that I'm based out of. And from their inception, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. Their focus at Prima is curating the best equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines to under-counter fridges, pretty much anything you can think of. And they put a big emphasis also on having the expertise in-house to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. Now, I've known them for a long time, pretty much since the beginning of their company, and I can't vouch for them enough. And right now, when you visit their website, prima-coffee.com, they've extended a special promo for us at Keys to the Shop. If you're a listener to the show, for you only, you can go to their website and use the promo code KEYS10, that's KEYS and the number 10, and that will give you $10 off any purchase over $75. Some restrictions do apply. So you go to the website, prima-coffee.com, and use the promo code KEYS10 when you check out to get that discount. And I want to say thank you so much to Prima for their generosity and for supporting Keys to the Shop and for supporting all of us in the industry by providing us with fantastic tools that help us do our jobs well. So let's get back to our conversation now with Katie Startzman of the Native Bagel Company. Well, something that we haven't talked about yet, and this because this is a coffee podcast, is you also have a full espresso bar and coffee menu. And full disclosure, you guys are wholesale customers of Center Gas Coffee, where I work. But I wanted to sort of get a feel for how does that mix with what you do with the bagels, and how have people received that in tandem? They go together, but and you and I being from the Northeast, know this, but in rural Kentucky, you wouldn't necessarily think espresso and bagels. Sure, that's what we should do. Right.
Well, the way I came to having the espresso set up is when I was thinking about doing a brick and mortar. I was trying to think of what else I wanted to have on the menu, and once again, I saw an opportunity there. At that time, there was only one other espresso machine in Berea. So there was only one other shop where you could get coffee drinks that were not at a fast food restaurant. And so that to me felt like an opportunity. Even though I've learned so much working with Center Gas. I'm not a super coffee geek at all. But I enjoy good coffee and saw that as an opportunity. And so started to do more research. So I did what you're not supposed to do and bought used equipment at auction and then had it all repaired.
It happens.
But but it's fine. It's so hard to start out and have all those expenses.
Absolutely.
And then we really just learned so much when we went out and worked with Neil to understand the kind of the philosophy of good espresso and coffee, and then just the mechanics of how to do it. And
Neil, the wholesale rep.
Yes, Neil, our wholesale rep with Center Gas. And so it was just really empowering. It felt really good. And so now I'm really proud of the coffee that we serve, and we're already getting reputation for our coffee, and I'm really proud of that as well. And it's just been a really nice compliment to the bagels, and just another way to kind of have an additional income stream and also bring quality coffee drinks to our town.
Yeah, and the more the merrier.
Yeah, I agree.
So the entry point for people when they come into the store, I imagine, is either one of two things. Either they want the bagel and they are convinced about the coffee, or they want the coffee and they say, well, what the heck, I'll get a bagel too. Or maybe there's a third option, they want both.
Right.
But what do you see most of all? I mean, the name of your place is a bagel. I imagine bagels first, coffee second.
Yeah, I think that probably is still true, but I think we are starting to build a reputation around our coffee, and I think that will continue to grow. We're a college town, and we're within walking distance of Berea College campus. And so we're really kind of influenced by that schedule. And so we opened about 2 or 3 weeks before the college let out for the summer.
Nice.
But I think students and faculty were really starting to discover us and come down here. And I'm really looking forward to this next fall to see what we get for our coffee sales in the morning. I would say, I can't really estimate. I should have looked at my reporting, my point of sale, to give you some percentages. I mean, I think it's very rare for someone to come in and get just a coffee drink. Usually they get a bagel as well.
Nice.
But then in our afternoon traffic, we get people who come in and just get a pick-me-up cup of coffee. So, yeah.
I think food in cafes in general, it's one of those things that people either do half-heartedly, and a lot of coffee shops are guilty of either not sourcing a really good wholesaler of baked goods, or trying to do it themselves, but doing par-baked, danishes and things like that.
Right.
In the industry at large, I think we see the tide turning.
Oh, interesting.
In people are expecting food with high-end espresso drinks. Whereas before, I think people were just kind of expecting a average espresso drink or an average baked good. And now the bar is up there. And hearing what you're doing with the bagels and all the training that you're going through with espresso, it just really gives hope for just excellence in everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what we're going for, honestly. I feel really proud of the combination of food and beverage that we do have. We have a couple sweets as well, just things that you can grab. But yeah.
So as you start to become more popular in town, and you have 4 employees besides you and your husband, you grow, you're going to need more employees. One of the things that really makes a shop is the staff.
Right.
What kind of a standard do you have and follow for finding staff to represent what you want people to see Native Bagel as?
Sure. That's super important to me, and it was really the thing I was most nervous about. I'm more than a little controlling, and really knew that once we started this, I was not going to be able to have my finger on everything that was happening. And when we set out to hire staff, the first person we hired had a ton of kitchen and baking experience, and I really hired her to be our production lead. But then the next person I actually hired him because he had been a customer. He was Holden, who you met when you came in.
Yeah.
He had been a customer at the farmer's market, and before I even knew him, the thing that struck me about him was how kind he was. And he doesn't have a ton of food service experience. He has some, but the thing that I appreciate about him is that he's really kind to our customers. And that is something that I think is hard to teach. But he is genuinely happy to talk to diverse clientele and make them feel welcome here. And so that's great. And I really enjoy working with him. And so, there are skills that you have to work in a space like this, but also everyone I hired, they're people I genuinely enjoy spending time with and who I think can really relate to our customers as human beings. So yeah, that's the most important thing, I guess.
That's a great thing. It's hard to teach, especially if somebody has learned the other way.
Sure.
To be cynical about customers.
Sure.
It's not really going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I understand. No, yeah. And I think I am so excited about what we're doing. My husband, Michael, and I are really proud of what we're building. And in general, it feels like our community is rooting for us. And so we're happy to be here. We really are. And I think that shows, and our customers can feel that. And Michael and I, one of us is always here. And so I think it's also kind of really up to us to set the tone as well. So, yeah.
And as business grows also, and you work on your business and not in it a little bit more moving forward, the culture is going to depend on your staff.
Sure.
And checking in with them. Have you started any kind of systems, or do you have anything in place now that sort of says, okay, these are the standard operating procedures for when people come in, like the greeting, etc.?
No, we have not formalized that. I mean, the 4 of us who are working have kind of come to that.
Yes.
But that's something that I've thought about that is a need that we do not have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important because it's kind of hard to quickly summarize or articulate the standards for that. So that's a really great idea that we should work on. We have other things standardized like production and that side, but not the guest experience. So that's smart.
I think that's really great that I almost think that's great that you're not doing that in a sense, because you're the owners, and your presence, like Matthew and Brian at Sonnergasse always talked about present leadership as sort of the cultural tone of the place. And here you guys are in the space, and it is kind of like feeling out what will populate those necessary documents for the future.
Yeah, that's true.
So totally awesome. Do you guys get a lot of tourism in Berea?
Berea is a tourist town. We're right on I-75, and the Kentucky Artisan Center is at exit 77, which is on the other side of town in Berea. And also with the college campus, and there's a strong arts and crafts community in town. So we do get a lot of tourists, and we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of visitors to Berea.
That's going to definitely expand your brand and put it out there.
Yeah, it's exciting. It feels really good. Yeah, I like that. And I love, being from the Northeast, sometimes there's a particular kind of customer who says, well, I'm from New Jersey, so I'll tell you if these bagels are good or not. And I say, okay, great. I would love to have you tell me what you think about our bagels.
Everyone has a bagel shop that they swear is the best ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's hard because none of them agree. It's like pizza in New York.
Yes, you're exactly right.
The worst ones you can definitely agree, though.
Right. That's true. That's true.
So there's a lot of folks who want to start businesses. They are in a similar situation. Maybe they're taking a course online or at a community college or something to figure out business in general. I think that sounds like such a smart move. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is wanting to start their own business from your experience that would be a good first step or good first few steps?
Well, I am an obsessive researcher, so I would just recommend a bunch of books to read. I think it's really important to collect information and really think seriously about not just your project, but like how it's going to make money, and really look at the numbers of is it feasible and is it profitable? Because I think that it's great to have a fun project, but eventually that's going to get old. And I think it's really smart to think about I really spent a lot of time thinking about what is my social capital in our community? If we do this Kickstarter campaign, do we have enough people who are going to be excited about it? And just things like that. And then also really, which this is hard. I don't know that I'm succeeding at this, but really think about what you want your life to look like and if your business can fit into that. For example, we're working way more than I want to work, but I know it's temporary as we get this off the ground, and hopefully in about a year, things will even out. So those are some things that I think I spent a lot of time thinking about. Thinking about those boring things. To me, they're boring. I am not a numbers person. My husband and I both are creative types. So the bookkeeping side of it is more of a struggle, or it doesn't come as naturally. But there's a book called Restaurant Success by the Numbers. That was the guy is a restaurant owner, but he's also CPA. And that book really helped me kind of think about, the financial side of it. And it also helped me think, for someone who didn't have a lot of actual restaurant experience, thinking about projecting sales and just all sorts of things. It was a very helpful book as I started up.
Nice.
And then
by Roger Fields.
I guess I'm not sure.
I'm looking it up here. Yeah. Restaurant Success by the Numbers by Roger Fields.
It's pretty dry, but it was really helpful.
No kidding.
It was helpful. It is. And those are important things to think about, Yeah. And then I really like Danny Meyer's hospitality book. I read that, thinking about the guest experience. And I don't know, I read a lot of books about business and service and that kind of thing. And it really helped me kind of have the right mindset as we start out on this journey.
So doing due diligence and realizing that it is about, spending money to make money, bring in more than you spent.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's interesting you say that too, because I'm a real kind of bootstrap, something from nothing kind of person. And so that was actually like the biggest barrier when we first were getting started, is deciding to actually put some real money into this and actually go into debt. We actually ended up borrowing money as well. So Macid, the nonprofit that I talked about, we were their pilot customer for this new program called the Crowd Match Microloan. So for our second Kickstarter campaign, when we used it to build out this brick and mortar location, they matched 1-to-1 what we raised in our Kickstarter campaign with a super low interest rate loan. That's very easy to get. So it's not like going to the bank and just asking for money. So that was super helpful, but also was very scary to me as someone who has avoided debt at all costs as a person, as our family. But it was necessary. And I think in some ways, I kind of hamstrung myself at the beginning when I was growing my business because I was scared to take on that debt. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of people would kind of think, I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Sure.
And that way I will have more money.
Right.
And what you're saying is that's not necessarily the case.
No. And I mean, I think it's important to not go crazy, but, it costs money to get everything started. And, but it was just really hard for me to be okay with borrowing money. And I had a friend, actually, Michelle, who owns the Potting Shed, a nursery here in Berea. And about 20 years ago, when she was getting her business started, she got a loan, and it was about the same amount as a car payment. And so she told me, when I was having trouble thinking about getting a loan, she was like, well, if even my business fails, I will just basically be paying off this car that doesn't exist. And so that's kind of what I've told myself, just to be okay with having a small loan. It's not huge. So it's not like a mortgage payment. I can handle it. It's okay to take that on.
And almost is a thing that you can allow yourself to do, especially knowing that you're already fastidious with your money.
That's true. Yeah.
Because you're not going to go like crazy with it.
Right. That's true.
Other folks, maybe other folks are just like, I can't get a loan because I'll go crazy and I'll get lots of loans.
I don't know. So I think it's possible to be too thrifty. And I was kind of feeling that, you know, so yeah.
Well, certainly the places where you spend money are going to have to be the places where it's going to be making the biggest difference in your store. How did you go about deciding where to spend that money once you got the loan? Sure.
Well, it was we definitely needed more equipment.
Yeah.
So that was like the biggest chunk. Buying a refrigerated prep table and the espresso coffee grinders, all of that. That really added to our startup costs. We already had the commercial baking and cooking equipment and hood, everything. We did have to pay quite a bit. Actually, the biggest chunk of money was probably paying licensed tradesmen to do our plumbing and electrical work.
Yeah.
And we're in a building that was built in the 1920s, and the electrical system was not up to snuff. So that was actually also our biggest unexpected expense, was a lot of additional electrical work that's hidden behind the walls, but now we're not going to start a fire.
You said it used to be a dress shop.
Yes. The space we're in used to be a dress shop.
Not a lot of heavy equipment coming through here.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then also we had to, I don't know what the rules are in Louisville, but in the city of Berea, anytime there's a 3-compartment sink, you're basically required to have a 1,000-gallon grease trap. And that was a huge thing. I requested a waiver since we're not actually doing any cooking on site, and that was a real nail biter, but we were granted a waiver, and so we just have an under the sink grease trap.
Yeah.
But that would have been a huge portion of my budget if I was required to put that in.
Oh wow. So, well, good for you for appealing that.
Yeah.
And now as an entrepreneur starts their business and then begins the operations, what would your advice be in terms of how you start to interact with the public and the brand? Now, people are just getting to know you. Maybe heard somebody is opening, you tear the paper down off the windows, and it's your first couple of days. What are some important things that they should keep in mind or be prepared for?
Well, hopefully, I'm really hoping that a lot of times when people walk into our shop, they're already familiar with our brand. We casually ask people how they heard about us, and we do get a lot of customers who found out about us on social media. And so that's really nice because they have some context, and if they're following us on Instagram, they already kind of are starting to understand our story and our values. So that's awesome because the customers are already kind of aware of that.
Yeah.
But I think that really being open with people about, we still tell people we've just been here for 8 weeks, we're just getting going, and people in general are really supportive and encouraging and excited to be some of the first customers to visit our shop. And I think recognizing that everything is not going to be ready. I mean, you can still see when you look around, we do not have art hanging on the walls. And my husband is an artist. We have plenty of art. It's just not done yet, And also we really, as far as a food and drink place, we kept our menu really tight when we first opened. We did not have a lot of food options. We actually we still haven't put like chai drinks on the menu. We just started doing cold brew 2 weeks ago.
Right.
We really wanted to keep things simple, especially and making espresso-based drinks was new to us. So that was a huge, leap to add those things. So keeping things really tight and realizing that it's not going to be perfect, but it was pretty intense when we first got started.
Nice. Well, we start small in hours, start small in menu, and then expand is a lot easier to change things that direction.
Yes.
And it is to get people used to something and take it away.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And so we have tried to do that. And I mean, I've been very open with people, like for instance, about our hours. And our days of the week. We're open 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday right now, and we're going to be expanding. But I think just letting people know that this is a family business and we're learning as we go and we're growing slowly and that kind of thing. And I think most customers appreciate that and recognize that. I mean, we still do. I mean, we have gotten some complaints about us not being open on Sunday afternoon. And I think it's hard because people's expectation is that we're going to be open all the time, like a fast food restaurant or something, So, yeah. And
the flexibility of those people over time is still there. I find that when people say something like, "Oh, you don't have this flavor," or "You don't have the hours that I want," there's a tendency for the entrepreneur, especially if you're just like lack of sleep and money's on the line.
Sure.
Well, now we have to do that.
Right.
Right. And so maybe be patient. It sounds like you guys are doing just that, being patient and just kind of letting it holistically grow instead of just kind of going out there and doing things as a reaction. Yeah,
sure. I think it's smart. I mean, I do think it's hard to do that,
Yeah.
But yeah, and just I think too, I think customers. I mean, I love my customers, but I also do think sometimes people will make requests not thinking about like the humans behind the service or what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so I think we have to create those boundaries for ourselves and for our employees.
Yeah. Earlier, you mentioned social media, and it is still something I think that folks who are owners might underestimate the power of social media. You mentioned social capital, and increasingly social capital is built online. I wonder if you could speak to how that it sounds like it's influenced some of your success. Would you encourage other owners to take it a little bit more seriously?
I can't overstate that. I think that it's super important. I think I really enjoy using Instagram, but we use both Instagram and Facebook. We also have an email list that we're building, and I never use it. I never send out emails like you're supposed to. But yeah, I think, like I said before about telling our story, I think that people appreciate seeing that. And so it's not, every post we do isn't showing something and saying bye, bye, bye. It's also kind of showing behind the scenes or showing something that we're happy with or what the shop looks like. And so I think that it really gives people a 5-second glimpse into our day and what's going on with our business. And I think people like to be a part of that. I think it's not hard to integrate into my day at all. Sometimes I feel like I'm just taking pictures of the shop interior and close-ups of bagels. So sometimes you have to be a little creative. But no, I think it's so valuable. And particularly, when I was looking at the demographics of we use Square for our point of sale system. And it's just really interesting, the reporting that you can get from that.
Yes, absolutely.
And then also looking at the demographics of who uses our Facebook page and that kind of thing. And just thinking about how those things go together has just been really interesting. Yeah. So I think it's hugely important. But I also recognize it's something, I don't enjoy Facebook as much as Instagram, but I really enjoy Instagram as well, like in an aspirational way. We're kind of isolated. We're in a small town in central Kentucky. There's not a lot of bagel shops around. There's not even really a lot of coffee shops around. And so on Instagram, I follow a lot of people who I want to be like when I grow up, and so then I can see what's going on in Louisville or Lexington or Newport, so that feels really good too, to kind of feel like I'm connected to that coffee or, small restaurant culture.
Yeah. And the customers do the same thing. With your brand, they almost teleport over to that shop, even though they can't be there. They're in traffic and they're kind of looking at, hopefully not while they're driving,
right.
Bagel chips or experiments or cold brew and things like that.
Totally.
And they can imagine themselves there. So it creates this desire for them to be in their space. Mm-hmm. And eventually they'll just kind of pull in and come to your store.
Right. Totally. I agree.
Yeah. And then, of course, like we talked about before, the staff is in your culture. Now you've got these expectations built up, and when people come in, they're like, we're going to give them this great coffee and bagel experience, and it's just all sweet.
Yeah.
So 8 weeks old, and it sounds like things are going pretty well. People are just responding well to your bagels, to the coffee, and I'm really excited to have gotten an opportunity to come here. I know you guys are listeners to the show too, and to be able to come down here and interview you was a great honor.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's so fun to be a part of your show.
Well, there you go. I hope you really got a lot out of that time with Katie, hearing her story. It is just such a great feeling, especially doing this in an establishment. I have to tell you, the energy of a new business is just like nothing else. I'm really impressed by the tenacity that Katie has and the vision that she has for her business and her heart for her community. And there's so many things to take away from this conversation with Katie. I think building social capital as an entrepreneur is really important, being involved in your community and learning a lot about the industry that you want to venture into. Of course, Katie studied a lot about business beforehand. And the big thing, of course, we talked about this with Collin Harmon in a previous episode, that the stuff that's kind of boring, the numbers, the forms, all of the operations things of a business are the things that make that dream possible. And if you can wrap your head around that, even if you're kind of that artistic, creative, right brain type of person like Katie professes that she is, and that type of thing doesn't seem really attractive to you, it will pay in the long run to kind of become really familiar with those things and familiar enough to sustain your dream and to be able to make bagels for a long time in the future, or make coffee or roast coffee for a long time in the future. Whatever it is that you've got in your head, if you are a future owner of a coffee bar, or you're a future owner of a bagel cafe, that is something that you should definitely latch on to. So thank you once again, Katie, for the amazing bagels and your insights, your wisdom and experience. And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. You can also find the notes for this episode on keystotheshop.com. You can also find all of the past episodes of Keys to the Shop if you want to just peruse that and find some good content to listen to, going for a walk or something like that. There's a lot of things to learn from industry professionals that we've covered on the show. Now, if you have any questions, you can email me, Chris@keystotheshop.com. Be happy to hear from you and get back to you as soon as is humanly possible. And if you like the show, would you go to iTunes, give us a review and a rating, and definitely subscribe to the show. Your rating and reviews make a big difference on the show. I'm really excited to see that the show is listened to by so many people in so many different countries. It's really, the internet's a magic thing. It's really amazing how many different nationalities are represented in the listening audience. And I know maybe I sound old. Maybe that's just like, no, duh, that's like the internet, man. But to me, I think it's special. So if you're out there and you're in a far-flung land, I'm really excited to have you in the audience. It's my honor to be able to provide content and the voices of industry experts to help you in your career, wherever you are in your career and in this world. So thank you so much for tuning in. Now, to go this week and embrace your community, serve your community, serve those who you work with, and get excited about business. You're a coffee professional. You get to serve people tasty things. That is a really fantastic profession to be in, and not many people get the honor of doing that. And your pleasure is derived from the pleasure of others. So I would encourage all of us to tune into what that means to us in our establishments and how we can get more focused in on creating pleasure for others through our craft. And as always, I hope this episode, along with all of our other episodes, have given you keys to the shop.